loves like me. There's nobody like that. I know. And the Tom's assigned to him.
That's one of the sessions we used to use.
They were a little small. This one, I'm just gonna do everything. We're so big. For 80 guys, he goes, it's beyond filth.
Yeah.
And
Which is interesting.
All right. Call to order the regular session of the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and we'll start with the call to roll.
Scott Mulhern,
Here.
Ron Rice,
Here.
John McKinley,
Here.
Tim Bowers,
here,
Matias Rosales,
Here.
Paul White,
Here.
Alicia Aguirre,
Here.
Gary Black,
Here.
Wayne Idy,
Here.
and Danny Bryant.
Here.
Chairman, you do have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, before we get started, just some notes. If you've parked in the rear, employee gated parking lot, you must immediately move your car to the front, to the north, to parking lot to avoid having your car locked in. There's no public egress from the hallway to the south parking lot. The only public entry into the building is through the north entrance near the auditorium. All access to the DDS building is limited to staff only as a security precaution. If you wish to speak, you must sign in on the sign-in sheet by the rear door. Before you speak at the podium, please state your name and address for the record. Please address the chair and do not speak to other audience members or staff. If you have handouts to give the commission, you must give them to the administrative staff to distribute. If you show information on the overhead projector, you must give them to the administrative staff to become part of the permanent record. We have restrooms and drinking fountains down the hall behind the meeting room. Feel free to use those. No food or beverage other than water allowed in the meeting. And with that, we'll go to our first item, which is approval of Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting minutes of February 26th and March 26th.
So moved.
Have a motion to accept?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is rezoning case 18-02. And this is the rezoning of a 10-acre gross parcel from rural acre 10-acre minimum to rural acre 5-acre minimum. It's located at County 14th and a half Street and Avenue 1E. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is continued from the March 26, 2018 meeting. The subject property is located in the Yuma Mesa planning area. More precisely, it's about 660 feet south of the intersection of Avenue 1E and County 14 and a half. The applicant intends to split the property into two parcels for residential development and ag uses. This is the zoning and vicinity map showing the subject parcel. Access on the west via Avenue 1E. All parcels surrounding the subject property are in ag, zone RA10. The property is also under the 70 decibel noise zone. This is Exhibit A, it's a site plan provided by the applicant, how they intend to split the property into west and east half. They're proposing a 20-foot easement for egress on the south portion of parcel 021B to allow access for parcel 21A. On the north, there's an irrigation canal. This is an aerial view showing the subject parcel. An oblique view now showing the only structures on the property. This is a view looking northeast of the subject property from Avenue 1E. A close-up. It's in alfalfa production. MCAS and Yuma County Airport Authority are not supporting this request, so it doesn't fall within the densities under the noise zone. Staff recommends approval of rezoning case number 18-02, subject to the following performance conditions. Within 60 days of approval by the board, the owners or agent shall provide the following: an ARS 12-1134 waiver, an agricultural disclosure statement, an infrastructure disclosure statement, a navigation disclosure statement, and a schedule for development disclosure statement. Also, the following is scheduled for development. Within 1 year of board's approval, the owner shall apply for and obtain a grading permit from the Department of Development Services to improve the ingress-egress easement shown at Exhibit A as an access-built road in a dust-free condition by application of an aggregate-based course, referred to attachment standard number C, gravel road. Number 2, within 1 year of board's approval by the board, the property shall be split in accordance with attached site plan labeled as Exhibit A by means of a land division permit in accordance with Section 507 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. And number 3, within 1 year of board's approval, all lots shall be provided with means of irrigation and access to irrigation water prior to development of any of the existing parcels. The owners or agent will submit a letter from the irrigation district to the Department of Development Services confirming that a satisfactory irrigation system is installed and that the individual lots will have access to irrigation water. Mr. Chairman, this concludes this presentation, and the applicants are here.
Any questions of staff? Hearing none, we'll invite the applicant to come forward.
My name is Noemi Diaz de Leon. I'm the agent representing Ermi Family Ltd.
Any questions of us?
Ooh.
Are the conditions acceptable to you?
Yes.
Anyone else have a question of the applicant?
I just have one question. Your intent is to split the property into 2 parcels. Yeah, what's the plan for after that?
We plan to sell them as 5-acre.
To sell the lots?
Yes.
Not going to build and then sell?
No, just sell the lots in 5-acre parcels.
Any other questions of the applicant? Hearing none, we'll invite you back up if we need to.
Thank you.
Engaging.
Anyone from the public care to speak for or against this request?
Paula Bax, the Marine Corps Air Station. It's been a while since I've been here in front of you guys. The planners have been awesome in getting us the cases, and normally we see eye to eye on most of the cases. On this particular case, we feel it's an increase in a possibility of residential zoning within the noise contour. It's the 70 to 75 noise contour, and we've never approved residential densities in that area. We also feel that it would set a precedence of what is planned for that area, and all the 10-acre parcels in that area could go down to less to increase density and become RA5s, such as this case. There was a case in 2005, and that was withdrawn. It was similar to this case, and it was in the 70 to 75 noise zone. I brought with me Gabby Black, and she is the new community planner for out at the Marine Base. And the new community liaison specialist is Mary Ellen Finch. You will see them in the future. I retire at the end of June. And I just want to let you know that it's been a pleasure working with you and working with staff since '95 when I took this job. So, yeah. Thank you very much.
Anyone else from the public care to speak for or against this request? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission for action.
Mr. Chairman, comments. I know in the past we've really followed recommendations by MCAS, try to watch for the densities in these noise zones. In particular, our good buddy was here always to fight those battles and to make sure that the boundaries were not intruded upon. Unfortunately, he's not here with us no longer, but, you know, I'd have to make some kind of a stance for that. I think we are setting a precedent. I'm sure open to the rest of the commission to see what they have to say, but based on that and the understanding of intruding on that airspace, at this point, I'd have to recommend no.
A question of staff, the two lots adjacent, 22 and 23, when were they split? Or were they split?
Mr. Chairman, they were split previously to this. I don't know the exact date. I can get it to you immediately if you want.
Any other comments from the commission?
Mr. Chairman?
Commissioner?
Just a question of staff. I wanted to make sure I understood. We haven't had another case like this since 2005. Is that what I got from the agent?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, what was the question, the notification? I'm not sure.
We haven't had another case of splitting residential properties in this noise zone since 2005? The request that was withdrawn?
Yeah, no, that's what, that is correct, Mr. Chairman. That's how she mentioned, yeah, Paula back from CS.
Do we have any idea if there has been any approved and when they were?
No, Mr. Chairman. No. On this one, it was withdrawn. The one that Paula Bax has mentioned that it was withdrawn.
And so this is not a case where the military is actually not supporting, they're actually actively opposing.
It appears so, Mr. Chairman.
Alicia?
I know that at this point, they're just trying to split the lots, but will there be any restrictions in the future as far as building heights, density of the building itself to prevent noise? What type of restrictions would be imposed on if there is construction, residential construction?
It will be like a regular residential permit. However, they will need to design into the residence attenuation to noise to 30 decibels. That will be one of the key components being built, the residence under a 70 decibel noise zone.
Okay. Any other comments from the commission? I would entertain a motion.
I do have one. Paula, thank you, and thank you for your service. We're going to miss you. But I'd like to echo what Commissioner Black said. The Marine Corps is huge for everything the Yuma County is about. We are a military town. We support them. They support us. I do believe that this would set a precedent, so I would also
This is the one that
oppose.
Well, I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny zoning case number 18-02, recommendation as to deny in this particular instance.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of a motion to disapprove the request, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously to deny the request. Our next item is rezoning case 18-05. FC General Contractor requests rezoning of a 14,000 square foot inside manufactured home subdivision from 10,000 square feet to 6,000 square feet located at 12754 East 42nd Street.
Chairman White, I need to recuse myself from this.
Okay.
Rezoning case 18-05. I'm currently employed by the engineering firm that's representing the agent.
I think council approves that you're allowed to sit. But... Okay, staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Javier Barraza, presenting rezoning case number 18-05. This project is located in the Foothills planning area at 12754 East 42nd Street with the intent to split the property into two lots for residential development. This is the zoning map showing the subject property highlighted at the center. All properties near the subject parcel are improve properties with site builds and manufactured homes, zone manufactured homes 4.5, MHS 10, and MHS 20. Parcel 49, it's property vacant, zone MHS 20. And parcel 36, it's property improved with religious facilities on MHS 20. This is Exhibit A showing the site plan, how the applicant intends to split the property. There's currently a building permit for a site-built home pending on this rezoning and land division permit. This is an aerial view showing the subject properly outlined. Access by 42nd Street on the south and by Paula Avenue on the west, which are primitive roads that receive semi-annual maintenance. This is a view looking northeast of the subject property. Another view looking northeast. Staff received one phone call in support of this request within the notification area and a letter from 3 property owners of 5 parcels in opposition of this request. Staff recommends approval of rezoning case number 18-05, subject to the following performance conditions. Within 60 days of approval by the board, the owners or agent shall provide the following: an ARS 12-1134 waiver, a range and restricted airspace disclosure statement, an infrastructure disclosure statement, and a schedule for development disclosure statement. Also, the following schedule for development. Within 1 year of approval by the board, the property shall be split in accordance with the attached site plan label as Exhibit A by means of a land division permit in accordance with Section 507 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. Mr. Chairman, don't see, the applicant, the agents, the applicant agent is present, and this concludes this presentation. We have any
Questions of staff?
Yes, I do. Those properties, I guess that's to the north, was it MS or whatever it is, 4.5 in there, are they 6,000 square feet
No, Mr. Chairman,
or
that,
approximately?
Mr. Chairman, there will be 4,500 square feet in size. I mean, I'm sorry, what was the question? I'm sorry, they say I didn't get it.
Okay, so they're basically the size of what the applicant is looking to make into, correct?
6,000.
Any other questions of staff? Hearing none, we'll invite the applicant to come forward.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Adrian Vega, 1560 South Fifth Avenue. As the agent for the owner, we do agree to all the conditions of approvals, and we're open to any questions if you guys have any.
Questions of the applicant?
Yes, just one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Clarify what Commissioner Rice just asked. The 2 lots above, MHS 10 and 4.5. Now, what, do you happen to know what the lots are, those lots are?
Yes, we are going to MHS 6, which is 6,000 square feet lots minimum.
Okay, your area is hatched in red, is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, the one to the north is MHS 4.5, which is 4,500 square feet
You
minimum.
mean the actual?
He's asking for parcel 57 and 58. I mean 57 and 59.
58 and
58
59.
and 59.
Can you put the screen before this one back up there? It shows it. Okay. Lot 57,
That's our property.
and right now it's 14,000, is that right?
Yes. Actually, right now it's MHS 10, which is 10,000 square feet, and we're going to MHS 6, 6,000 square feet minimum.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone from the public care to speak for or against this request? If there's no one from the public, we'll close the public hearing and open up to the commission for action.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move we recommend approval of rezoning case 18-05 with subject to staff's recommendation.
I have a motion, and I have a second. Who's the second? Ron Rice? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. On the next three, do you want to hear the minor amendment separately by itself and then move on to the other two?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we would like to present each case separately.
Each case separately, okay. Next one is minor amendment case 2018 MA01, Cactus Kush Farms, request change of land use designation of a 5-acre portion of a 62-acre parcel from agricultural rural preservation to agriculture industrial. It's located at Avenue 74E and County 17 and Half Street North, near Hyder.
Mr. Chairman, I need to recuse myself from minor amendment case number 2018 MA-01. The company I currently work for is representing the owner.
Okay. So noted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fernando Villegas, Senior Planner, presenting minor amendment case 2018 MA-01. This is a request to change the land use designation of a 5-acre portion of a parcel 62.63 acres in size from agricultural rural preservation to agriculture industrial. The applicant's intent is to rezone 5 acres from R840 to light industrial 5 to establish a medical marijuana cultivation site. A minor amendment to change the land use designation to agriculture industrial is necessary to allow the rezoning. The subject property is located in the Dayland East County Planning Area of Yuma County Comprehensive Plan, on the southwest corner of the alignment of Avenue 774E and County 17 and a half Street North Hyder. All the surrounding parcels have the same land use designation, agricultural rural preservation. The request is for agriculture industrial land use designation. If approved, the agriculture industrial will be a new land use designation in the area. Sorry. Next, we have a narrow view of the subject parcel showing the site and adjacent parcels. We have a picture of the existing conditions of the subject property. 3 building permits have been issued to the subject property: an exempt storage shed in 2007, manufactured home installation permit, which expired in 2008. The manufactured home remains uninstalled on the subject property, and a septic tank in 2008. Staff received no comments in favor or in opposition for this case. The applicant submitted 17 letters in support. The staff is recommending denial for the following reasons. The amendment is not considered an overall improvement to the plan because there are no other parcels in the area designated as agriculture industrial. The existing plan designation remains appropriate since no other plan amendments have been done on or occur that have changed the character of the area. And the last one, the amendment doesn't address an oversight, inconsistency, or other land use related inequity, since the land use designation in all directions is agricultural rural preservation. Mr. Chairman, this concludes the staff presentation for the minor amendment. Any question for staff?
Questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman, just a couple just for clarification, because this is kind of a new model for us. Basically, in order to grow marijuana, and this is basically what they want to do. It's cultivation, it's still farming, correct?
Yes, they can cultivate. However, it's not considered an agricultural activity, medical marijuana, according to our zoning ordinance.
But we're not looking at a big industrial use. We're talking about growing a product. Am I correct?
Correct.
That's all I need to know.
Chairman, yes. According to the letter from the county assessor, that it's not considered agriculture at all.
Mr. Healy, how does that relate to our case?
Mr. Chairman, my assumption was that it was agriculture. I'm not sure what the
Have
The
you
assessor
seen the
looked at it.
Have you seen the letter from Joe Worley?
I did not.
We'll give you a minute on that. Amanda, what are some examples throughout the county of AI?
The land use, AI agriculture industrial land use designation allows agriculture zoning and industrial zoning. In this case, the applicant decided to go with something that it's more compatible with the area, which is agriculture industrial, not industrial, heavy industrial. And that was our recommendation for the applicant to go with this land use designation that allows agriculture zoning, RA 10, RA 20, RA 40, and industrial zoning at the same time.
Is there any AI anywhere near this?
No, I think in Hyder, we can find some industrial properties.
Not AI. They're just industrial.
Industrial zoning properties south of the railroad tracks, probably 3 miles south from the subject property.
Healy?
Mr. Chairman, apparently the assessor will be classifying it as not agriculture for taxing purposes. As far as the use, it probably is agriculture, but the state statute which says that zoning does not apply to parcels that are in agriculture over 5 acres commercial was amended about 1.5 years ago, saying that it didn't apply to growing marijuana, which is why zoning applies to this use.
Do you feel they fit under the AI for zoning purposes?
The planning director believes that they would.
Okay. All right.
So I don't have any dispute with that.
You are not in dispute with that?
Right. The only thing was we were wondering, when I first saw this, my question was, well, why is this even before the commission if they're in agriculture? And it was because of a statutory change to bring it back under zoning and now allow it to be exempted.
Any other questions of staff? Wayne?
Yes, I do have another question. You mentioned the AI, there was something like 3 miles away?
Heavy industrial zoning is probably in Hyder, 3 miles south from the subject property. It's possible to find properties that are zoned heavy industrial, light industrial, and commercial.
So what would have to be the proximity to this piece to have this word be an acceptable amendment?
Well, our recommendation is based on adjacent uses, land uses.
So if it was a mile away or half mile away or 3 miles is too long, is there,
Yes.
what would be considered adjacent?
Chairman, for us, it needs to be in close proximity to the subject property or adjacent to the subject property. In this case, everything is the same, agricultural rural preservation, and for that reason, we recommend denial.
Mr. Chairman? The issue with this case specifically is that the existing land use designation, which is agricultural rural preservation, does not allow light industrial zoning. The only district that allows the cultivation of medical marijuana is the light industrial zoning district. So in order for us to process a rezoning case or a request to change the zoning district of the property from rural area to industrial or light industrial specifically, triggers a minor amendment to the comprehensive plan. There may be industrial zoning in this area, not adjacent to the area, but possibly within 3 to 5 miles of the subject property. But those properties zoned industrial may have been in existence at the time that the comprehensive plan was adopted, and therefore did not require an amendment to the comprehensive plan. Staff would have to do additional research to find the specific information about those parcels.
Any other questions of staff?
Mr. Chairman, just to make clear, we have no objections from any of the other property owners around this one. Is that accurate?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. We received no letters or phone calls in opposition.
So even though this would be a standalone zoning category out in the middle. No one else cares except for staff.
That's correct.
I shouldn't have said it quite that way.
All right.
I'd take it back.
All right. We'll invite the applicant to come forward.
Need a presentation? PowerPoint? Yeah, I have the presentation.
Good evening, members of the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission. My name, for the record, is Peter Valenzuela from the Genesis Group, Government Relations, Public Affairs, Scottsdale, Arizona, 7272 East Indian School Road, 85251. With me here is the project engineer, Chris Robbins, for the record.
Yeah, I don't know if you want me to go first and you follow up and then.
Well, yes.
Mr. Chairman, Christopher Robbins, Dahl Robbins and Associates, 1560 South Fifth Avenue here in Yuma. One of the agents for the applicant, we've brought a consultant in with us to better answer some of the more complicated issues or questions you may have. It is a unique case where you'd think a cultivation facility would be more agricultural in nature and require agricultural land use and zoning designation. I think due to the policies that have been set up, our hands are tied to where we need to obtain a industrial land use, industrial zoning in order for it to fit. This project is out within 2 or 3 miles of the Maricopa County line. It's a good distance from any of the municipalities, Dateland and Hyder, and is in the middle of nowhere. It's we know staff's not in a bad way in the middle of nowhere, but it really, in my opinion, couldn't be a better place for this type of use. I think staff's hands are somewhat tied due to the fact that this is what they consider a spot development. But I think that we need to have anybody that goes out there, any use that is the first use is going to be a spot development. So this is the cards we're kind of dealt with, and this is the property we're looking at. I'll let Peter talk, and if you've got any questions for me, I'm here to answer them.
With that, we understand that we've got 3 items here. We're taking one at a time from what I understand from staff. However, they are kind of bundled because they're all kind of the same request. The first of which, the first item has staff recommendation to not approve. The 2 follow-up items on the agenda have been recommended by staff to approve. We have a quick video here. We'd like to go ahead and show you as an overview so the members and staff can get a good bird's eye view of the described property. If you'll bear with us, it lasts a little bit of a minute. If you see, it's the property here itself is very rural in landscape. It's agricultural, been used for years as a designation. What we'd want to go ahead and do is take a look at the land itself, and the use does fit as the project engineer Christopher had mentioned, that there's not a whole lot around it, and the request would fit and conform with what the state intentions are for this type of use as well. You want to talk about this area right here? Okay, we're just giving you a bird's eye view. We had a drone fly over and make this video for us, so that the members of the commission could look at the requested site in its whole, and see that at the end of the day that the request does fall within approval. see here, this area here, that's the area that the actual grow facility would go. It's a 5-acre portion of 62 acres. We can go to the PowerPoint. The name of our applicant is Cactus Kush for this application, Cactus Kush Farms. We've got 3 requests here today, the first of which we're addressing right now. Cactus Kush Farms requests the change from land use designation for 5 acres of this parcel, which is a completely, exists at 62.63 gross acres in size, from agricultural rural preservation, ARP, to agricultural industrial, A1. One of the things we wanted to discuss on this item is this is not spot development. I'm coming, as Christopher had mentioned, I'm coming from the consulting side in Maricopa County, where we went through these same sort of exercises as well with regards to a lot of local jurisdictions there. Having said that, we had very rural areas in Maricopa County, the city of Phoenix, Laveen, Scottsdale, Mesa, Tempe, and those other areas as well, that had to go ahead when medical marijuana was introduced in 2010 through the ballot initiative. There was a whole lot of things that everyone had to fall under from both DHS, which is Arizona Department of Health Services, and the local jurisdiction would have its own rules and regulations. So according to code from the local jurisdiction, and the applicant needs to be within those areas, one of the things that we feel is most important is we understand fully that the applicant is going to be the first applicant for this type of use, this type of request. But I think that in looking over at the merits of each individual case, the medical marijuana use falls under the use permit item, which has been already identified by staff with the recommendation to approve. The staff recommendation to deny was the item number 1, but still it's kind of got the use involved with that as a zoning designation for that use, for that designation. So we think the majority of the conversation for any type of medical marijuana use should come under the 3rd item, which we will discuss after one of the 3 applicant cases, for the use permit and fall under the use permit purview. Now, with regards to the minor amendment, this is more of a land use changing plan, a minor amendment to the local jurisdiction's plan. So I think that the use for this plan conforms to that. We've got a number of reasons as well.
Right. And again, although it's a change in land use, I think in the staff report, although the AI land use designation is compatible with the existing ARP land use designation, and then it goes on from there. So it seems that our requested change in land use is compatible. And staff goes on to point out a number of the things that it does not adversely affect health, safety, and welfare. It's got no burden on Yuma County as far as addition of infrastructure. So I think it's just this hurdle of the consideration of spot development that we may be away from a recommendation for approval from. There's a spot solar facility 2 miles south. There's a spot industrial property 3 miles south. So, you know, we won't be the only spot there.
Yeah, exactly. Getting to a precedent issue, I don't believe that this would be creating a precedent insofar as granting an approval for this request. You've got a number, it's more of a pioneering request. Some applicant somewhere is going to be the first one to come ahead and go ahead and apply for this type of request, and it's going to be approved in some jurisdiction. Again, coming from this industry background as a consultant, I've been in government relations for a number of years, and I've seen it come through other local jurisdictions prior to, and counties as well, prior to it coming to Yuma County. And we've had to address all those items as well. But I think more than anything else, it's a pioneering issue, and it's not a precedent-setting issue. As Christopher just mentioned, it's not setting a precedent. There are similar uses on heavy industrial less than 3 miles away. There's another development that is 2 miles away that's also this type of zoning designation. So we think in terms of the request itself, it conforms with local jurisdiction or the county policy. If we can go ahead and go to the next slide. If you take a look, this is the subject property here. This is where the 5 acres would be carved out, and it would be a greenhouse type of build that would be constructed there. Again, another picture of the area that would be developed for a grow harvest. Oh, and there will be no retail site on this, as well, as you probably already told in the report. There'll be no retail. Okay, part of what we wanted to make sure that the commission understood is that it's going to be a licensed cannabis cultivation site as per Arizona Department of Health Services. I worked intensively with a gentleman by the name of Tom Salo at DHS. He heads the all applications and requests throughout the state for cultivation sites, and I can assure you that all the requests that I've seen, that this does conform to requests such for this type of use. This site will serve as a wholesaler. I see where in the paper there was an article written that said this would be the single largest or one of a number of biggest growers for the state. There are literally only a handful of grow facilities that operate in the state. You have 130 dispensaries. You have 30 grow sites and facilities throughout the state. This would be one. And in terms of supplying the county with this, it would be under 1% of the total patient count that Arizona has now. So it would not be a huge monolithic type of grow facility that you have here. Okay, we propose to construct a 12,600 square foot pre-engineered metal building to consist of the cultivation. A commercial kitchen will be built out of the existing building on site. A modular office trailer will be brought in for an office, restrooms, and employee bathroom. Security. That site will be secured by an 8-foot high fence with a locked gate and monitored with extensive video security, all required by ADHS. Among complying with all the other established regulations by the state. All finished product will be stored and secured in a locked and safe on-site location, and the operation will be subject to be announced and unannounced audits by Arizona Department of Health Services to be within compliance. The site will be designed to provide safe and convenient access to and from the public roadway system. The building and parking setbacks will be in accordance with code. The height, elevation, and appearance of the new building will be compatible with the general character of the surrounding area. And the domestic water and sanitary sewer will be provided by a means of private well and septic system. Key points. By the development of this cultivation harvest facility, there's several employment opportunities as well. They fully expect to employ 15 to 20 full-time employees as soon as the project is given a green light and built out. For future projections, 50 full-time employees, which for Yuma County are premium jobs for the area, will be starting at $15 per hour. There's a kitchen there. There's a lab and a kitchen provide a full line of items. Again, this application is the first in Yuma County. However, numerous counties have harvest grows throughout the state. Border Patrol. This location east of the Border Patrol checkpoint is along Interstate 8. The site was intentionally chosen because of the checkpoint, as Border Patrol could confiscate product that was moving through their checkpoint. Until the federal government reschedules cannabis, this will continue to be an issue. And lastly, there is no precedent. This is not a precedent. There is another parcel located within 3 miles, and there are similar zoning designation parcels in the area that we discussed already. You can see here again, this is the county parcel that we're discussing here. You see that, again, it's very rural in its capacity and in its nature. And this is the area here that we're looking to go ahead and build out. This is the parcel again. You have three separate build-out parcel or components here. The first of which, this would be the application here, which is for the build-out for this cultivation harvest, and it's right here in terms of the site plan we just saw. This is the slide that will show the design build in nature and what the harvest buildings itself would look like. And again, it's very compatible with the surrounding area and those light buildings in the area as well to fit in with the landscape and the genre. Reference points. The property is less than 4 miles from the Maricopa County line. The product will be distributed in other counties, primarily Maricopa County. We do not anticipate wholesaling in Yuma County at this time. There is one existing dispensary in Yuma now. It's a sustainable business model. It's certified 100% organic. There's no waste and uses recyclable water. Again, employment opportunities where employment is scarce. Future projections are 50 full-time employees. The investment into this facility, it'll be $1.4 million state-of-the-art facility. It's hydroponic in character, indoor grow, lights, and AC under roof. Could grow a variety of agricultural products, including tomatoes, carrots, flowers, etc. And lastly, Cactus Kush Farms will contribute to a number of nonprofit entities and charities locally, as the industry is committed as a whole in helping a variety of causes. Having said that,
Any questions of the applicant? Hearing none, thank you. If we need to, we'll get you back up here. At this time, we would open this to the public. Anyone caring to speak for or against this request?
My name is Bob Slunson. I live in Welton, Arizona. I've been involved with the Dakeland School for 48 years. I know Hyder better than any of you, and better than any of you would want to know. John McKinley and I worked grapes at White Wing Ranch for 20-some years. We have seen our population at the school go from 237 to 89. We are the stepchild of Yuma County. We have one of the biggest tax bases now, thanks to the solar project, but we don't feel like we get treated with the respect that we should. The school is not against this project. In the whole 48 years that I've been there, okay, we got a dairy. We would have had Hormel, the pig farm, but that was voted down by people that, we won't go into that detail, okay? We are thirsty for employment opportunities. And from what I've heard tonight, you know, there's many positives about this program and what it would be able to do for Yuma County, what it would be able to do for the Hyder area. I'm not an expert, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a civil engineer. All I know is that if this is good for our community, and I'm talking about the Hyder, Dakeland, Aztec community, then there has to be a way that something can be worked out to make this happen. Some people said, well, they could move south to the tower. One of the things that you don't know out there, if you drill a well here and you drill a well over here, it doesn't mean that you're going to get water. You may get water here, but a mile down the road, you may not get water. So you have to take those kind of things into consideration. It sounds easy to take and say, well, move it 3 miles south. Well, do you know what the water's like? You know if there's water there? So all I'm asking you is to give this a fair discussion among yourselves and asking that you do what's right for the Hyder area. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak? For or against? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission for action.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, a question of staff. This cannabis cultivation needs this new agricultural industrial zoning because that's the category that growing is placed in. Would it be easier to move the category, to move and say that cannabis can be grown in an agricultural area?
Mr. Chairman, the zoning ordinance was amended in approximately 2008 or 2009, maybe a little more recent than that. I'm not sure the exact date. But the zoning ordinance was amended specifically to add medical marijuana dispensaries and cultivation. The text amendment that was approved by the Board of Supervisors to the zoning ordinance only allows medical marijuana cultivation and medical marijuana dispensaries in the light industrial zoning districts. If the commission and the board would like to consider those uses allowed in other zoning districts, it would require an amendment to the zoning ordinance. So we would need a request to amend the zoning ordinance to provide for those uses to be allowed in other zoning districts. At this time, the cultivation of medical marijuana is only allowed in the light industrial zoning district.
But the staff's concern is that this would be a spot zoning issue. So if cannabis was allowed in agriculture, you'd be supporting this thing all the way through. Is that fair?
Mr. Chairman, all applications are processed on an individual case-by-case basis, and staff's recommendation is based on sound planning principles. So staff would take a request and review it on its own merits, surrounding land uses, surrounding zoning districts, to arrive at an appropriate recommendation.
What other things could be allowed in this light industrial zoning category, this agricultural industrial category? What other things other than growing cannabis?
I mean, let me grab the zoning ordinance to provide you with a list.
Sure. Commissioner Black, you have a comment while we're waiting?
Yeah, while we're waiting on that, you know, I think the issue, we're getting away from the issue a little bit, in my opinion, and maybe not, but we're looking at a minor amendment. And so we have the ability to do a minor amendment. When we did our general plan, whatever it was, 7, 8, 10 years ago, we didn't even have an idea we'd have something like this throughout the county. So within the general plan, how could you plan something that you don't know about? I think just looking at this proposed project, that we have something that, yes, is different. We didn't plan for it, but I think we have the opportunity to go ahead and approve a minor amendment and maybe make a precedent and maybe look at this in the next general plan. That's my thought.
I agree.
I agree.
Mr. Chairman, some of the uses that are allowed in the light industrial zoning district include administrative and professional offices, airport facilities, apparel, clothing, and other products manufactured from textiles, animal boarding or auctions, veterinary hospitals or kennels, automobile repair, automobile accessory stores and tire sales, building materials sales yards, contractor sales and equipment yards, convenience stores or mini marts, heavy equipment sales, rental and repair, hotels, ice and cold storage plants, manufacturing, including processing, assembly, and/or packaging, medical centers, doctor's offices, and/or
I
clinics.
think I'm getting a drift that all, all of those items are still things that wouldn't be harmful to a neighborhood if this use got changed. Therefore, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve minor amendment case number
Mr. Chairman,
2018
has the
MA-01.
public hearing been closed?
Yes.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Yes,
Ron?
on items 6, 7, and 8, are we talking about the same 5-acre parcel?
Yes, but right now, we're just
So
doing.
we do the minor amendment, and then we rezone in 7 and 8? Is that what it looks like?
Yes, rezone and then a special use permit. Any other discussion? I have a motion and a second to approve minor amendment case 218 MA-01. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. And we'll move on to rezoning case 18-01. Do you want to include the special use with that?
If you want to, Mr. Chairman.
I think you could.
Okay. Rezoning, the first rezoning case, 1801, it's a request to rezone the 5 acres from RA 40, which is rural area, 40-acre minimum, to light industrial 5 acres minimum. The applicant intent is to establish a medical marijuana cultivation site, okay? The subject property, we know where it is located, southwest corner of Avenue 74E and County 17.5 Street in Hyder. All the surrounding properties are zone RA 40. This is the site plan submitted by the applicant. Shows the proposed area to be developed. The applicant is proposing an access from the southwest corner of the property, parking, new office, kitchen area, and greenhouse for cultivation. Sorry. We have an aerial and some pictures of the subject property. This one is looking northeast, I'm sorry, from the south property line. And this is a picture of 74E looking south from the south property line. Again, staff received no comments in favor or in opposition for this case or the special use permit. For the rezoning case, staff is recommending approval with the following performance conditions. Within 60 days of approval by the board of supervisors, the owner or agent shall provide the following: agricultural disclosure statement, an infrastructure disclosure statement, and a navigation disclosure statement. Performance conditions, medical, I think we need to include also a schedule development disclosure statement. It's on the staff report. Performance condition number 1 needs to include a schedule development disclosure statement. It's part of the staff report. And the second condition, performance condition, is medical marijuana may only be cultivated in an indoor area equipped with locks and other security devices that permit access only by those authorized by state law to cultivate medical marijuana. Performance condition number 3, medical marijuana is not allowed to be cultivated in a location or manner that is visible from any area, accessible to the general public or from any point of the parcel. And performance condition number 4, all requirements, standards, and conditions for the cultivation of medical marijuana in state statute and regulations must be met at all times. The schedule for development within 2 years of approval by the board of supervisors. The owner applicant shall acquire and have finalized all required permits as per appropriate code requirements. All structures shall meet the requirements of the Yuma County Comprehensive Building Safety Code and the 2003 International Fire Code. And the last condition is a land division permit shall be obtained in accordance with the Yuma County zoning ordinance. Mr. Chairman, I'm going to continue with the special use permit. Medical cultivation site. The cultivation site is only allowed in light industrial zoning districts with the special use permit. And the special use permit, it's per section 613.03H of the Yuma County zoning ordinance to allow the cultivation on the 5 acre parcel, zone light industrial 5. We have same slides, same pictures. Again, we received no comments in favor or in opposition for the special use permit. And we have similar operational conditions for the special use permit. The approval of the special use permit is based on the site plan submitted by the applicant. Any change from the site plan will require approval by the planning director. Operational condition number 2, operations under the special use permit are not allowed until all required permits are finalized unless otherwise approved by the planning director and the chief building official. Operational condition number 3, marijuana may only be cultivated in an indoor area equipped with locks or other security devices that permit access only to those authorized by state law to cultivate medical marijuana. Number 4, medical marijuana is not allowed to be cultivated in a location or manner that is visible from any area accessible to the public from any point of the parcel. And number 5, all requirements, standards, and conditions for the cultivation of medical marijuana in the state statute and regulations must be met at all times. Now we have performance conditions within 2 years of approval by the Board of Supervisors of this special use permit. The owner or applicant shall acquire and have finalized all required permits as per appropriate code requirements. It's the same condition as the rezoning. All structures shall meet all the requirements of Yuma County zoning comprehensive building code and the 2003 International Fire Code. And again, the land division permit should be obtained by the applicant. Mr. Chairman, this concludes both presentations, the rezoning and special use.
Any questions of staff? Hearing none, we'll invite the applicant forward to address both the rezoning and the special use.
Again, thank you, Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission members. For the record, again, Peter Valenzuela, the Genesis Group, Government Relations, 7272 North Scottsdale Road, Scottsdale, Arizona, 85201. Just to make it brief, with regards to both the rezone case and the special use permit, the applicant does confirm and will abide by any and all local jurisdiction ordinance that falls in line with both the rezoning and the special use permit, as well as any stipulations that coincide with both requests. If there's any questions.
Any questions of the applicant? Hearing none, thank you very much. We'll have you back up if we need to. Anyone from the public care to speak for or against this request? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission for action. First action would be on rezoning case 1801.
Mr. Commissioner, would you accept a motion?
I would.
I present that we approve rezoning case number 1801 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Now I would take action on special use permit case 1801.
Mr. Chairman, would you entertain a motion?
Please.
Yes, I request that we accept as presented special use permit case number 1801.
Second.
1802, sorry.
It's 1801.
1801.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Our next item, special use permit case 1802, Osmond Engineering.
Here we go, there's 1802.
Requests a special use permit allow automotive sales on a 34,000 square foot size parcel zone light industrial located at 2852 East Highway 95.
Thank you, Chairman White, members of the commission. Juan Leal Rubio, Senior Planner with the Planning and Zoning Division. This is a special use permit case number 1802, a special use permit per section 61303A of the Yuma County zoning ordinance to allow automobile sales on a parcel 34,412 square feet in size, zoned light industrial, located in the 65 to 70 decibel noise zone. This is located in the Gila Valley Planning Area at 2852 East Highway 95 in Yuma. You have a vicinity map in front of you that shows the subject property, parcel 59, crosshatched. Properties to the north, northwest, and northeast are all zone light industrial. They contain a mixture of commercial and industrial uses. Properties to the south of Highway 95, parcel 180-35001, is zoned general commercial, and it's currently in agricultural. This is the site plan provided by the applicant. They show here the existing building, formerly a bar. They wish to convert the front entry into the office for the automobile sales. They show here the vehicle storage area in the back, a couple vehicle storage area to the front, and the vehicle display area. Some handicap parking for customers and regular parking. This is a view looking north at the existing building, view looking south at the primary access to the property, the view looking east from within the subject property, view looking west from within the project site. We received comments from both MCAS and the Yuma County Airport Authority. They do not oppose this proposal. They do recommend some disclosure statements be recorded, and we've incorporated those into the staff report. Staff is recommending approval of this proposal with the following performance conditions: that within 60 days of approval by the board, they submit a ARS waiver, that they record a navigation disclosure statement within 60 days of board approval, and that within 180 days, the owner applicant shall grade and surface the parking lot and circulation areas in accordance with Section 906 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. And the following operational conditions: this special use is based on the site plan provided by the applicant. Any changes to the site plan will require approval by the plan director, and access be limited to one along Highway 95. Staff has been in conversation with the applicant's agent, and they agree to all the conditions. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Any questions of staff? Hearing none, we'll invite the applicant to come forward.
Good evening, Chairman, members. My name is Ibrahim Osman, with Osman Engineering, 183 East 24th Street, Suite number 6 in Yuma. My client, Mr. Jaju, is intending to change this existing empty bar into an automobile sales that will house 9 vehicles. And we submitted the site plan, and my client is aware that he will abide by the regulations and the rules of the Yuma County and the Public Works construction standards for the parking spaces, and most likely we will do ABC with dust inhibitors to make sure that the new facility, the new use, will not adversely affect any of the neighbors of the neighborhood.
Any questions of the applicant? Hearing none, thank you very much. Anyone from the public care to speak for or against this request? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission for action.
Mr. Chairman, Jake Morgan,
Please.
make a motion that we approve the special use permit, case number 1802, as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. The next item, rezoning case 1803. Jose Prieto requests to rezone a parcel of 1.81 gross acres from rural acre 10-acre minimum to suburban site-built 2-acre minimum. It's located at the southeast corner of County 14 Street and Avenue 4E. Oh, what did I get? Avenue 4E?
Oh, sorry, there's a typo.
144.
44E?
That was way east. Thank you, Chairman White, members of the commission. Juan Leal Rubio, Senior Planner with the Planning and Zoning Division. This is rezoning case 1803. Request to rezone 1.81 gross acres from RA10 to SSB2. This is in the Yuma Mesa planning area at the southeast corner of County 14 Street and Avenue 4E in Yuma. And this is to allow a single-family residence. Shown here is parcel 7 crosshatched, and property surrounding the subject property to the northeast, to the east, and to the northwest are all zone RA10. Parcels 1 and 2 to the north and parcel 7480908, all within the Reby Ranchettes zone SR2. Parcels 1 and 2 contain single-family residences that were built back in the late 70s, early 80s. Parcel 747-16007 contains a single-family residence, zone SSB2. Parcel 6 is zone RA10 also. It contains a single-family residence built also in the 80s. Parcel further south is parcel 5, zone SSB1. House that was built back in the 70s, remodeled in the 90s, and also recently in 2014. And in blue is the A canal. This is the site plan provided by the applicant, new home that he wishes to build. And this is aerial imagery, single-family residence all around. This is a view looking east at subject property, looking west from within the subject property, looking north from the subject property, looking south from the subject property. And also we received comments from both MCAS and Yuma County Airport Authority, not in opposition. We're recommending approval with the following performance conditions: that within 60 days of approval by the board, the applicant submitted ARS 121134 waiver, an agricultural disclosure statement, a range, and a navigational disclosure statement. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Any questions of staff? Hearing none, we'll invite the applicant to come forward.
Good afternoon, Chairman and board members. My name is Jose Prieto. It's 5431 East 37th Place in Yuma. The agent for Mr. James Ronell Adcox. And I'm here just in case you guys have any questions and might not approve this, because I wanted this approved. And any questions for me?
Any questions?
Because I agree with the staff here, so.
Okay.
I think we got his message, yeah.
All right. No, we have no questions. Thank you. Anyone from the public care to speak for or against this request? Seeing none, we'll turn it over to close the public hearing and turn it over to commission for action.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move that we recommend approval of rezoning case number 1803 as presented by staff.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Next item is special use permit case 1803. A request for a special use permit to allow accessory dwelling unit on a parcel 2.4 acres in size, zone SSB 2, located at 13561 South Tierra Bonita Boulevard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Javier Barraza, Senior Planner, presenting a special use permit number 1803. As you mentioned, this is a request for a special use permit for section 604.03E on the Yuma County zoning ordinance to allow an accessory dwelling unit. The project is located in the Yuma Mesa Planning Area 13561 South Tierra Bonita Boulevard, and the intent is to convert an existing pool house already in construction into an accessory dwelling unit. This is the vicinity map showing the subject parcel, highlighted at the center. The highlighted group of parcels are developed with site builds, zone SSB2. And this group of parcels are also zone SSB2 unimproved. The subject parcel is under the 65 decibel noise zone and the overfly pattern. This is Exhibit A showing the site plan submitted by the applicant, showing the proposed new pool house to be turned into an accessory dwelling unit. The floor plan provided by the applicant, showing the existing proposal. Once, if this special use is approved, will contain in the counter area with a cooking range. This is an aerial view showing the subject parcel highlighted at the center, showing the access via on the west via Tierra Bonita Boulevard. A view looking southeast of the subject property. View looking southeast of the pool house from inside of the property. View looking south of the residence and the pool house, which is being under construction right now. And view looking south at the actual pool house to be turned into an accessory dwelling unit. Staff received comments from MCAS and Yuma County Airport Authority with a concern that this structure can be turned into a rental. Staff recommends approval of a special use permit 18-03, subject to the following operational conditions. The approval of the special use permit is based on the site plan submitted by the applicant. Any change from the site plan will be required approval by the planning director pursuant to section 402.04 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. And the accessory dwelling unit shall not be rented. Also, the following performance conditions: within 60 days of board's approval, all owners or their agents must provide the following: an ARS 12-1134 waiver and a recorded aviation disclosure statement. Mr. Chairman, this concludes this presentation. The applicant cannot call before, like an hour ago, and mentioned that cannot be present. He's in the middle of procedure that was extended.
Any questions of staff? Hearing none, I would open it up to the public for comments if someone has is for or against this request.
Paula Bax, Marine Corps Air Station. We're always concerned about accessory dwelling units being placed within the noise contours. I know when they changed the wording for any structure that's put in the noise zone, they call it an accessory dwelling unit. So it gives you the connotation that a dwelling, that people would be dwelling within that unit. We appreciate that the staff has given us an opportunity to look at this case. It looks like the pool house does not have any bedrooms or anything where people can reside, so we do not object to it. And we'd appreciate that they send us all the cases in the future so we can look at each one on an individual basis. And we would just like to see that they are not rented out in the future. And I know as each owner changes down the line, that becomes a possibility. So, thank you.
Anyone else from the public care to speak for or against? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission for action.
Mr. Chairman, will you take a motion?
Please.
I would like to make a motion to recommend approval of special use permit case number 18-03 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Next item is rezoning case 18-04. Sarah Holdings request to rezone a 10-acre gross parcel from rural acre 10 minimum to suburban site built 2 minimum, located south of County 17th Street and Avenue A.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fernando Villegas, Senior Planner, presenting rezoning case 18-04. The applicant's intent is to divide the 10 acres into 4 parcels, at least 2 acres in size for site-built homes. As you can see here, the subject properties are located east of Avenue A, south of County 17th Street. Both properties are undeveloped. Parcels 1, 4, and 5 to the north are zone SSB2 and are undeveloped. These 3 parcels were recently rezoned to SSB2 with conditions by the Board of Supervisors. Parcel 2 and 3 also to the north are zone RA10 and are in citrus. Parcel 755-34001 to the northeast is zone SSB2 and is the location of a site-built home. Parcel 755-34003 to the east is also zone SSB2 and it's in agriculture production. Parcel 10 to the south is zone SSB2. We have another site-built home here. Parcel 9 to the south is zone SSB2 and it's in agriculture. Parcel 8 to the south is zone RA10, also in agriculture, and the parcel to the west is in agriculture, zone RA10. The site plan, the next slide shows the site plan submitted by the applicant, shows the proposed lot split. The applicant is proposing an access easement on the south side of the subject properties and an irrigation easement on the north side of the properties. We have an aerial view of the subject properties. And now we have some pictures. This is a picture of the subject property looking southeast from Avenue A. And another picture looking southwest from the northeast corner. We received 2 comments from MCAS and YCAA requesting a navigation statement, navigation disclosure statement for this case. Staff is recommending approval with the following performance conditions. The owner or agent shall submit a signed and notarized waiver to the Department of Development Service within 60 days of approval by the Board Supervisor. Performance condition number 2, within 60 days of approval by the Board Supervisors. The applicant needs to submit a navigation disclosure statement, agricultural disclosure statement, infrastructure disclosure statement, and schedule for development disclosure statement. We have the schedule for development within 2 years of approval by the Board Supervisors. Prior to the approval of the land division permit, the owner shall apply for a grading permit with Yuma County Department of Development Services to improve the ingress-egress easement depicted on the site plan in a dust-free condition by application in aggregate base course ABC covered by a penetration chips and chip seal code. The eastern end of the ingress-egress easement shall also contain the means of emergency vehicle to turn around. The turnaround shall be in accordance with 2003 International Fire Code and current Yuma County policies. Condition number 2, the property should be split in accordance with the site plan submitted by the applicant by means of a land division permit. and an egress easement 20 feet in width along the south property line and an irrigation easement along the north property line shall be recorded. The owner shall submit certification from a licensed engineer confirming the road referred to in item 1 of the schedule for development was constructed in accordance to standard V penetration and chip seal. And condition number 4, all lots shall be provided with means of irrigation and access to irrigation water prior to development of any of the existing parcels. The owner will submit a letter from the irrigation district to the Department of Development Services confirming that the satisfactory irrigation system is installed and individual lots will have access to irrigation water. Mr. Chairman, this concludes the staff presentation. The applicant stated that they are in opposition of the penetration and chip seal code for the ingress egress easement that is being requested by staff.
That conclude your presentation?
Yeah, it concludes it. Sorry.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Hearing none, we'll invite the applicant to come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Vianey Vega, Vega & Vega Engineering, 1846 South 8th Avenue. We had the opportunity to review the conditions, the performance conditions. We don't have any problems. The schedule of development, the only issue that we have is on the type of road access that is being requested. We would like to provide just a normal ABC road to provide the access. We feel that that's adequate for provide the access that is required, and that will meet the requirement for the 2003 International Fire Code. And we are requesting this based on another project that my client developed last year. It's nearby the intersection of County 17 and 4E, and right there, the development is it was a five parcel project, and he was allowed to build just a typical ABC road as well. And based on that, that's why we are requesting that be allowed to build just a normal ABC road that will suffice the requirements. So condition number 1 to be modified to just the ABC road, and then since there's no, since we will not to have that chip seal road, condition number 3 will not be required if the construction of the ABC road is granted. The rest of the comments, we don't have a problem. We'll comply with those, and I'll be more than glad to answer any questions that the commissioners might have.
Questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
okay, you're okay with the irrigation requirements for each?
That's correct, yes.
And Mr. Chairman, just one question. Of course, this is in my neighborhood. I hope you understand that. But the only issue are these for sale lots? Are they going to be for sale houses that will be built?
Correct.
So this will be basically a small subdivision or lots, two acre lots with a house.
That's correct, yes.
And they will be developed and sold as houses or just sold as land?
The intent is to sell the house with the land.
Okay. Wouldn't it be beneficial to the project if these were chip sealed to eliminate the dust and everything? And then we've had, and the only reason I go to this is because I know some of the neighbors there. They've been to the meetings. They're really critical about the dust and the issue going by their particular house. But anyway, I'm just throwing that out as a neighborhood advisor, really with no authority for anything. But anyway, that was a comment. And since it is a for sale project, That's my opinion. I'll put it that way and shut up.
Mr. Chairman, and, what's the distance from Avenue A to the, east side of Lot 6 then?
All the way to the,
What's the length of the road to be
it will
chipped
be 1,200 feet total from Avenue A to 8th Avenue, a little bit over 1,200. Each lot is 310 feet wide.
We run into this every time,
We do, huh?
and I agree with Commissioner Black. I think it would enhance your development to go ahead and do it. You're gonna recoup your money anyway.
That question is staff. He referred to a case prior. Can you give us information on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the adjacent parcels to the north were recently rezoned, and the board approved the rezoning case with the condition that they needed to improve a 20-foot access easement with penetration and chip seal. Though that case was for parcel 1, 4, and 5, and also last year for parcel 28, the board also recommended approval with the same condition that they needed to build their road with chips, penetration and chip seal. And that's why staff has recommended the same condition for this case.
But Mr. Viega referred to a case where they didn't have to do chip seal, they did ABC, I thought.
It's on 4E, yeah.
Where would that project?
That's Savera Estates off of 4E and County 17th Street. It was developed last year.
It's like 5 miles away from this
I
location.
understand that, but
Yeah.
I guess I'm just looking for consistency. What I'm assuming is that they requested it not be chip seal, and then it would just be ABC, and that the board approved that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, without having that case in front of us, I asked the case planner to look into what staff recommended for that case and whether that recommendation was changed when it was heard before the commission and before the board. But we don't have the case in front of us. We can look it up if you would like to give us a few minutes to look into it.
Got copies if that helps.
You know what, I think, let's take a little recess, because we're gonna have a big discussion after this, and I'd like to have that information. So
Mr.
we'll
Chairman,
take
before we recess, may I ask?
Pardon?
May I just ask more questions?
Sure, before we recess.
For staff. In rezoning case 1802, looking through that case, although it didn't go any further than it was rejected. But that was, to me, it seems like a very similar case, and you only called out for a C gravel road, just for the ABC, and not for the chip seal on the first case.
Based on 2 lots versus 5 lots.
Well,
Number of traffic, I understand.
And I understand that, but I even had a question on the traffic counts, because they're talking 10 visits versus the 40. The math still didn't work for me. So, I don't know, I still think there's inconsistency there.
For consistency.
So I don't see the consistency there, so I would just think that the ABC road would be great, would be fine.
Let's take a recess. 5 minutes.
5 minutes. The property was rezoned in April of 1996, rezoning case 9582. So the zoning was already in place when they did the land division. And the road was improved with a ABC because to meet the requirement of the building safety, which is emergency access for vehicles.
But it was just done in ABC.
Yes,
In 90,
96.
Mr. Chairman, when the property was rezoned in 1996, the conditions of approval did not require the improvement of the road. Those requirements were put in place, or staff started requiring or recommending those improvements in the mid-2000s.
and then in the development just to the north, we required a chip seal.
Yes, we did. Well, the board did.
Pardon? The board did.
The board did.
All right. We had the applicant up. If the applicant has any more comments?
I'm Traguna Israel, 3159 South Horseshoe Bend Avenue, Yuma, Arizona. I'm the owner, representing Sabera Estates. I wanted to say a couple things here. I understand that the zoning or the zoning change was in the 90s over there, but the development is similar. We're trying to build 4 to 5 homes. In fact, this is only a 4-home subdivision or land division. We built the ABC road. We finished last March or April. The dust issues are not there. We just finished. We closed out that land division. We built out the homes. So that's my first point. The other thing is, in order to do a chip seal, the cost issue is there. But the other issue is trying to get a contractor mobilized to do a chip seal for a short section like that, unless they have another big job. It's going to add to the delays. My intent here is to move this in a reasonably quick manner. So that kind of impedes that. The third point is we're trying to move some of these vacant lots that have sat around for a while. And the more costs we add, it becomes a little cost prohibitive to keep developing those. So with that in mind, I'd like for you to consider allowing the ABC road. It'll be done to the county standards. It'll be tested. It's no different. The use is no different than what's been done at County 16.5 and Avenue 4E, regardless of the technical discrepancies that one was rezoned before and one is rezoned now. The intended use is the same. The intended outcome will be the same. So that's all I have to say.
Any questions of the applicant? Hearing none, we'll open the public hearing. Anyone caring to speak for or against this request? Seeing none, we'll turn it over to the commission for action.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve 1804 with the applicant's recommendation to go with the ABC road.
And to,
Mr. Chairman?
to not do the chip seal,
Correct.
which would strike
Item,
the sentence after the words ABC. We would strike covered by a penetration and chip seal
Correct.
coat. And we would also strike item 3.
correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Okay. Yes.
I disagree. I really think that with our environmental situation, with our air pollution and everything, that I think we ought to include the chip seal.
Okay. And we will vote on that. Is there a second to the motion? Yes.
Item number 3 would just change, the second line would change to state
Okay.
that the road was constructed according to standard C, which is the gravel road standard.
Standard C. Okay. All right. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second to approve the request and removing the chip seal requirement. Any discussion?
I have a question. We said on the adjacent parcels to the north, we did require it. Was there 1 or 2 or 3 total?
3 parcels to the north, 1, 4, and 5 were recently rezoned, and also 28, parcel 28 on the north side.
Did we require the chip seal the full length?
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just as a comment, you know, I appreciate the development, I really do. I think it's a matter of standards. I think that we have to, I mean, we know who pays for it. Ultimately, it's the landowner, but from talking with the neighbors in that area, they are my neighbors, so I have to listen to them, and I have to respect their wishes also. And I know we got into this in our previous meetings while they were here, and one of the things I did have to stand behind that, and I still have to, you know, have to go that way because I've already done it. I've already made my direction obvious, so you know, I about have to do that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I admire Commissioner Black. I thought you got a chance to change your mind back and forth, but we need
Yeah.
we need to be consistent. When we make the recommendation for the streets, has that been upheld by the Board of Supervisors? Have they made that a part of the final approval?
Mr. Chair, there are times when the board changes the recommendation to what staff recommended, and there are times when the board goes with what the applicant is
How
requesting.
about these three parcels?
Mr. Chairman, the parcels to the north that were rezoned, that were referenced by the case planner, parcels 1, 4, and 5, and parcel 28 to the north, all required the construction of a penetration and chip seal road. And that is what staff recommended.
And the Board of Supervisors approved that as the final.
Mr. Fahey, if this motion fails, we can bring up another motion for approval with different language?
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion on the floor? All those in favor, say aye.
Do you have a second?
It's,
Tim-
Oh,
Tim
I'm sorry, I'm
seconded.
sorry.
This is for.
Oh, this is
Approval
to
of
the
the
remove,
sentence.
the approval of the request with the removal of the chip seal requirement. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Mr. Chairman, can we get a roll call, please?
Please.
Al Mohern,
Aye.
Ron Rice,
No.
John McKinley,
Nay.
Tim Bowers,
Aye.
Matias Rosales,
No.
Paul White,
No.
Alicia Aguirre,
No.
Gary Black,
No.
Wayne Idy,
Yes.
and Danny Bryant.
Aye.
The motion does not carry.
I would entertain another motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I would entertain a motion to recommend approval based on this and based on staff recommendations. You know, I really feel that that's the precedent we've been setting, and I think that's the correct way to go. The Board of Supervisors can change it if they like at that point. But I think that's my recommendation.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, several seconds. McKinley, we'll give it to McKinley.
Passed unanimously.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Your one nay vote. The motion carries.
9-1.
Mr. Chairman, who was the nay vote?
Commissioner Ivey. All right.
Myself.
There was two names.
There was 2
For a
nays?
second, no? I'm sorry, you gotta be louder.
No.
My hearing's going. All right, so there were 2 nay votes.
Me too.
Next item, a public hearing on what changes ought to be made to the zoning enforcement provisions of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, continued from our March 22nd meeting. Not exactly sure what form a public hearing takes. I don't know that we've done a public hearing on its own before. I think the resulting action would be if we wanted to initiate a text amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This item was presented, originally presented at the February meeting, and then due to lack of a quorum for the last month, March 26th, It was continued at that time also to this meeting. And the memorandum that was included with your packet was a follow-up to the memorandum dated February 26. The State Zoning Enabling Act that enables the county to adopt a zoning ordinance, or the state zoning statute is an enabling act that enables the county to adopt a zoning ordinance. A county is not mandated to adopt zoning. However, if a zoning ordinance is enacted, state law has restrictions on what the zoning ordinance can cover and specifies who conducts enforcement and how civil enforcement decisions are appealed. The February 26, 2018 memorandum advised the commission that the zoning ordinance proposals submitted by one of the commissioners were preempted by state law. And specifically, that was the proposal to not allow decisions to be appealed, hearing officer decisions to be appealed to Superior Court. Section 1201 of the zoning ordinance, that's currently on the, on one of your slides, has the proposed amendments to the zoning ordinance. The wording in bold font is the proposed wording that was suggested by the planning and zoning, or one of the commissioners that brought this item forward. Item D has one word on the second line, which changes A to the, and then also adds after the sixth line, the new wording is unless the building is an actual threat to public health or safety. That's new wording. Then the lack of building permits does not itself constitute a threat to public health. Any building or structure that has been on the tax rolls for 5 years or more and is not an actual threat to public health or safety will be considered a grandfathered or exempted building or structure. Item E under that section is new wording that is proposed. The lack of building permits does not by itself constitute a public health or safety violation pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes 11-321E. And then section I of 1209.05, new wording proposed is the board's ruling is considered the final decision regarding the county, its employees, and its representative, and may not be appealed. Subsection J adds in the middle of the sentence, any appeal by the property owner arising from a decision of the Board of Supervisors shall be to Superior Court of the State of Arizona. The staff's recommendation is that we do not agree with the changes that are being proposed under this proposed amendment. The suggested changes concerning the lack of building permits would be in conflict with Arizona Revised Statutes 11-815C. And the zoning ordinance currently has a provision under section 1208 where it states, it shall be unlawful to knowingly petition for and or obtain any permit which conflicts with or violates the provisions of any federal, state, county, or local statute, ordinance, rule, or regulations relating to but not limited to health regulations or sanitary and wastewater facilities, fire, building, plumbing, electrical, mechanical codes, and drainage, floodplain, or right-of-way encroachment regulations. It goes on to state, to provide for the enforcement of this section, the county shall withhold any permit for properties upon which a use of the property, building, or any other structure does not meet the standards expressed in this section. Additionally, at the February meeting, February Planning and Zoning Commission's meeting, there was a comment that was brought up that concerning zoning ordinance from other counties in the state of Arizona. And the Coconino County zoning ordinance, La Paz County zoning ordinance, the Maricopa County zoning ordinance, the Mojave County zoning ordinance, the Pima County zoning ordinance, the Yavapai County zoning ordinance, the Apache County zoning ordinance, the Graham County zoning ordinance, Cochise County zoning ordinance, Santa Cruz County zoning ordinance, all reference appeals in their zoning ordinance, and the reference mirrors what's in state law for appeals. Navajo County, Pinal County, Gila County, Greenlee County, all do not reference appeals. However, that means that appeals are prohibited. They just don't reference them in the zoning ordinance. Mr. Chairman, that concludes staff's presentation.
Any commissioners care to comment on staff or?
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I wonder why I looked that way.
Oh, damn.
What a surprise, huh? Mr. Chairman, first let me say that the memorandum that I submitted in order to get this discussion started wasn't intended to be the final action. It was intended to get a discussion started, and as most of you will know, I'm not an attorney and could not attest to the legalities of each of those things. But when I told the business community that the staff was pushing back, I'm kind of surprised they're pushing back on us on some of this, but when I told them that there was resistance from staff, the business community got together and hired a private attorney, Mr. Barry Olson, in order to devise language that would be legally acceptable, that would serve to do the same thing, and that is to make Yuma County zoning ordinances less cumbersome on contractors and homeowners who are trying to maintain and keep their property updated, allowing permits to be issued on a timely manner, and also addressing the issue that is the elephant in the room of whether or not staff can sue the County Board of Supervisors. So I think it would be appropriate to say this particular item that was up on the screen that I authored wasn't intended to be the final legal argument. But now that the business community has retained Mr. Olson, if the chair is willing, I would like to hear from Mr. Olson on some of his ideas of things that we might look at incorporating.
Before we proceed there, any other questions of staff from the commission? Okay, we'll open it to the public and invite Mr. Olson forward.
Good evening, Barry Olson, 101 East 2nd Street. I've been before this commission numerous times over the years, and I was trying to figure out what was the best approach for tonight, but I always tell clients, I don't get hired for the easy cases, I always get hired for the difficult cases, and that's what I've been before you. And I went back to my notes. I talked to members of the business community, development community, to find out, or just kind of pull to figure out what problems they're having or what they thought could be fixed. The last amendment to the zoning ordinance in 2006 was pretty comprehensive. Those of you who've been on the commission for a while or been in development recall, prior to that, the county zoning ordinance was maybe about this thick, and then we needed to expand it to address a lot of issues. And again, back in 2006, we were coming out of what I call the Wildcat days, where all of South Mesa was developing in these subdivisions that you still have coming up before you this evening. But there were a variety of issues that led to the adoption of that zoning ordinance. So that now we're 12 years past it. I got adopted in August of 2006. As to what problems developers, homeowners were experiencing with the zoning ordinance or other regulations addressing development in the county. But before I get into that, I wanted to segue back to this issue about appeals. I think all of you know I handled a very contentious appeal for the Valenzuela family that you didn't get. It went to they were cited, and it had to do with, they were subsequent owners, bought a property that had a metal building on it. And it was never disclosed to them that that metal building lacked a permit. They applied for building permits just like they should have with the county, and through that process were subsequently cited for the metal building. Went to the zoning enforcement process, Board of Supervisors, Superior Court, the Court of Appeals. The Valenzuelas prevailed, but not after they spent $15,000 in attorney's fees, of which they've only recovered $5,000 from the county because that's the maximum that they could be allowed to recover under Arizona law. And the Valenzuelas are typical of the clients I see that run into some of these issues. I don't mean to characterize this, but I run into a lot of Spanish-speaking Hispanic families that have had issues in the past and, you know, are unfamiliar. And I always find that there's, you know, those always seem to be the cases where I had the most difficulty with, because the family's trying to do the right thing, but seem to get caught up in the process. But anyhow, through that, I think the big issue there was the Board of Supervisors ruled in the Valenzuela's favor. The statute says an appeal from that is to the Superior Court. We're not trying to take away the county's right to appeal, but my contention is the staff shouldn't have made that call. That call should have been from the Board of Supervisors. And that's my issue, is that the Board of Supervisors should have the final say on zoning appeals. If the board feels that it's prudent to appeal to the Superior Court, then let the board make the decision, not staff, because that was at the taxpayer's expense. And again, the Valenzuelas, they're caught up in litigation for 2 to 3 years to go through this process. But again, this is an issue I lived through, but I wanted to point out relative to the language that was put up there about the appeals. I think there's other problems with the appeal process, but whether we go to Superior Court and the Court of Appeals should be a board decision, not a function of staff. But backing up to the bigger issues, there was language set forth by Mr. Bryant relative to the lack of permits. And this is a common issue. And again, it goes back to the Valenzuela case. I have numerous cases where, you know, something that was built in the last 10 years, we don't ever seem to have these issues. Where I run into these issues are homes 15 to 20 years older, run into a lot of it with the foothills and manufactured housing built in the 80s and 90s. And the other issue I found out over the years is prior to 1976, I think the county pretty much recognizes everything prior to 1976 is grandfathered because the records are so sparse as to what got permitted, what didn't get permitted, and there weren't even permitting requirements prior to that on a lot of stuff. So I think there has to be something that comes up where you don't put the onus on a landowner that has a 20 to 25-year home to come in with building permits. Then the question is, okay, if it's the original owner, I could kind of get, okay, you built this house 25 years ago, maybe you should have kept a record of it. That's one issue. But that's not the common occurrence. The common occurrence is, like Valenzuela, you got the second or third owner, they've got no clue whether the home or the improvements had a building permit on it. They're totally dependent and reliant upon the county's records. But again, this is another issue that really didn't get addressed in Valenzuela, and it's the statute ARS 11321E that basically states, and it's also codified, or not codified, it's in the ordinance, the zoning ordinance, says the subsequent owner, essentially I'm paraphrasing this, is not required to get a permit unless there's a public health and safety violation. And staff and I have gone round and around about this, went up to the Court of Appeals, but again, we never got to that particular issue. And it's my contention, if you read that statute on its face and the zoning ordinance, the subsequent owner can only be required to get a permit for a structure if there's an actual public health and safety violation. And then the other argument in that case that Mr. Bryan addressed is the lack of a permit itself doesn't constitute a public health and safety violation. The board, when they heard Valenzuela, pretty much agreed with that. Just because you don't have a permit doesn't mean that the structure was built out of compliance with the code or if there's any other issues. I've also made the argument over the years, the longer something's up, it has to be doing, if something had to have been done right, it hasn't fallen down, burned down, or had any issues with it. I think that's one thing. You need some common sense approach. But I think we need to address that issue. And then the other issue that comes up with the permits is, okay, if you say, okay, you should have had a permit in 2005. Okay, so now I have to get a permit, but my structure was built in 2005. How am I going to, I believe I should be held to the standards in 2005 regarding building permits when I should have gotten it, if that's the way we're gonna go, versus 2018. Because if you have an existing structure that's 12, 13 years old when different codes applied, you essentially have to tear it down or tear it all apart to become compliant and to obtain a building permit. But this is a common issue I keep hearing about is you know, how do we address this? The other, another topic is engineered plans. We've had this come up in the foothills with shade structures, those type of structures, garages, carports, or pre-manufactured items where the staff requires engineered plans. I don't know if any of you have been through this, but if you have to get a structural engineer for engineered plans, Rob Campbell has done, he's pretty much the only structural engineer we have in town. I know Mr. Adias has done those. It's extremely difficult to obtain engineered plans. My argument's been is if something comes from a well-known manufacturer and they have pre-engineered plans that are stamped, maybe they were manufactured in North Carolina, Texas, why aren't those acceptable? I've also had a case before at the county where go get a structural engineer. Mr. Campbell wasn't available, hired a structural engineer. County didn't like the structural engineer, so we're gonna reject his. We don't think he's reliable. So it's like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I think that needs to be addressed. On the permit application denials, I believe staff, rather than saying denied, needs to give you the reasons and cite the code provisions and provide you a copy of those code provisions so you know what you need to do to comply with the permit denials. Again, if you have Spanish-speaking clients or a lot of individuals that do this on their own, you know, they're left at a guessing game. Have you looked at these code books lately? They're thick. I was in a meeting with the fire code, and if you got denied on a fire code, it's 2 volumes. I don't know how anybody could figure that out. But with ordinary lay folks, I think we need to have some more specifics on the denials to assist those folks in getting through the approval process. Another issue that comes up more with development is when do we condition a traffic study? I think that's another common sense approach. There, you know, certain projects where obviously traffic studies are needed, and there's other projects where I think you don't need them. But I don't think it should be a condition to approval. I think it's, we have to have some standards on it. I think that's getting the engineering committee involved to get their feedback on those matters. Another minor issue is extensions and reversions. I've had that come up on planning cases. As you recall, we adopted a lot of rezonings back in the mid to late 2000s. We had the housing fallout. Then we'd have developers have to keep coming in for extensions, or they were facing a reversion. There's a feeling that some engineers is, you know, why don't you just approve these things when they develop versus having to come back for extensions or go through the reversion process. Back to the zoning enforcement, I think this, again, needs to be looked at because I would suggest we have a hearing officer process, but I can tell you when clients come to me on a zoning enforcement case, I tell them flat out, when you go to the zoning enforcement hearing, you are going to get found guilty. I've only ever won 1 case at a zoning enforcement hearing, and this is probably having 30 or 40 of these, and it was after it was remanded by the Board of Supervisors back to the zoning enforcement, but they had to bring in someone independent that had to evaluate the facts and ruled in my client's favor. But a lot of these hearings, basically, once the hearing officer hears the staff report, I've had it where before I'm coming up to the podium, the hearing officer's finding my client guilty, and I've said, what about due process? Do we get to examine the county staff? Do we get to go through the process? Who has the burden of proof? My position is that the zoning hearing officer should not be an ex-development services staff member. It should be somebody independent that's not a former or current county employee other than their compensation as a hearing officer. That has been a big problem. The other, in the zoning ordinance, you have certain exemptions, and it used to be if you're ag exempt, you were ag exempt. We've had numerous cases on the ag exemption, but now you have to apply for a certification, and there's other exemptions in the zoning ordinance. I'm hearing from the development community, if we're exempt, we should be exempt. Why do we have to go to the county and pay fees and file applications when we shouldn't have to in the first place? Good point, makes some common sense. Another aspect that I found and have to deal with over the years is you have a zoning case. You had a real controversial case earlier tonight, but typically there's criteria for staff under state laws to who gets notice. But I've had cases in the past where staff expands the notice area because staff thinks it's of significant impact and that there should be a wider area. When you're the developer of that, you're like, wait a minute, this is supposed to be an objective standard. Who gets to decide what's the impacted area? And so that's something I think that needs to be addressed where there's specific criteria that it goes out to homeowners within X, I think by state law it's 300 feet, but I don't know why we're going beyond that when we're sending out public notices regardless of where the project's at. Those are the highlights of the items, but I think probably the best approach to this is I've identified some of the problems, but again, my job is to find solutions. I think what needs to happen is the development community, I'm willing to lead this effort, needs to meet with staff, basically outline what the issues are, what provisions of the zoning ordinance we propose be amended. I know that Mr. Bryant's tried to do some of that. And then have a dialogue with staff and then come back before you where we can have more of a discussion as to, okay, here's what we're proposing, here's everybody's position on it. And prior to that, obviously, it would be in front of the commission to review in advance of such a meeting or meetings. This might take a while. Appreciate your time. Any questions or aspects I can clarify on what I addressed?
Brian?
Yes, Mr. Olson, you were talking about the hearing officer and wishing that it wasn't a county employee or a building official. The zoning ordinances don't deal with that issue, do they?
No. It just
So
says,
that's just on a wish list that's out there, but there's nothing that we could do to help you with that.
there has to be a hearing officer. The question is, who is the hearing officer?
Right, but that's strictly by the Board of Supervisors, I believe, appointment, so I don't think that we could be of assistance in because I'm one of those people that he found guilty without presenting a case.
Oh, you're not the only one. I think you can help because we can define under the zoning ordinance criteria. It just, under state statute, talks about the procedure, but doesn't restrict.
So maybe we can, you could explore that anyway.
I know that statute real well, and I believe that you can put criteria as to who has to be the hearing officer. There has to be a hearing officer, but there should be better criteria of how that person is
But
selected.
if that's not in today's current zoning ordinance, we might be able to incorporate that into a zoning ordinance.
Yeah, there's criteria for judges and there's criteria for appointed officials in general as to what's, qualifications they have to have.
And when Ms. Castro was going through the list of other counties' zoning ordinances that allowed appeals, they all, of course, do allow appeals like ours does. And in the beginning, it says any party, either party, can appeal a hearing officer's decision to the Board of Supervisors. And then it says that Board of Supervisors' decisions shall be appealed subject to a state statute. It doesn't say any party. It said they can be appealed. Is there a difference there legally?
When I looked at the statute, to me, it just said that the appeals are to the Superior Court, and it describes it, but it doesn't. The question gets to be is who makes the call at the county? I'm not asking for the county to give up its right to an appeal.
No, the board should be able to appeal anything it wants.
Yeah, but why would the board appeal its own? That's the whole point. And it makes common sense. If the board says, hey, we think this has gone far, again, Valenzuela, I'll keep harping on this, the board never would have appealed that case. We had a discussion on it, and basically it needed to end there.
In my discussions with local contractors that pull permits on a regular basis, the estimate was from 3 or more, 3 of them that could quantify, that probably 40% of their jobs were impacted by a storage shed in the backyard that the county couldn't find a permit for, or some other zoning violation that they couldn't find a permit for, and at least 20% of them that they lost altogether. So it's a big economic impact for the business community. You say that you believe the records are fairly accurate for the last 10 years?
I would say that I haven't had any issues in the last 10 years with this. We used to have them all the time.
Yeah, and I haven't put dates to it, but I mean, in our company, the one that I work for, we have several times been able to produce permits for old projects that the county said they did not have permits for. So I think it's apparent the county's records are insufficient, but is there any way to know what date they became efficient where you?
No, I think you'd have to come up with the date. I think when the county moved over to this building from the other building that it used to have next door, the old MVD building, I think that's probably a starting point to look at, okay, maybe a reliability factor. I can tell you from experience, I've been down when we used to be, well, planning and zoning was next door at the MVD building. I'd gotten hired on a couple of large commercial projects to do due diligence and came down to get the building permits where you know there was permits. There had to have been, but there wasn't anything in the file. And large commercial stuff, when I have to report back to the buyer, I couldn't find any permits. They're like, well, that's impossible. I go, well, that's part of the problem. But it wasn't one occasion. It was several occasions where you could obviously tell that, just over the years, those files had, stuff had been lost or just got misplaced or misfiled.
Do you know of any other areas of county ordinances or state statutes where a defendant is considered guilty unless he can prove himself innocent, other than whether you had a permit or not?
No.
So that's the one area that we disagree with all other law enforcement agencies, is that our planning and zoning department, you are considered guilty if you can't prove that you're innocent.
Well, yeah, that's the perception of it, but you can also, if you don't have permits, you're guilty of a misdemeanor. Well, under Arizona law, the burden of proof is on the state, not on the defendant.
That's when you go into the criminal statute as opposed to the civil statute, where they assess a civil penalty at this hearing officer without, if you can't prove you're innocent, you're guilty.
That's essentially that's the way it operates.
Thank you. Any questions of this witness?
Never been referred to that before. But.
I object. Anyone else care to speak?
Cross-examining.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I got a question for Barry. How would you recommend that we come up with a written way to do this? I mean, would you do it? Who does it? How do we go? Because obviously staff doesn't agree with what you're saying. And I agree more with what you're saying rather than with staff. And I'd like to see something along this line that is written in front of us here.
Ron, I think in the past we've set up like a subcommittee. And in the past, I think it's just had commissioners and staff on it, but I don't know why we couldn't include members of the, stakeholders in the community. And you'll be on it since you brought up.
Thanks.
Chairman,
Yes.
did I understand very correctly, but he would be willing to work with staff in the drafting of some common language?
Yes, staff and I don't always agree, but there are issues that, over the years with staff, and staff's hands might be tied just because of what the ordinances say, but I think having that dialogue, I have no problem taking the lead, but, as Mr. Rice and you've brought up, essentially is, here's the issue, and then here's either the existing ordinance and what we propose to amend it, or there's not an ordinance provision, so here's some suggested language, so that you can take it from there. So I don't like getting together, say, well, here's all the problems. Well, I tell people all the time, I'm a a problem solver. So that's the way I see us having to address this.
We've done it in the past with a little committee. Is that something you think we should do with this? Is that acceptable?
Mr. Chairman, Barry has suggested meeting with staff to go over possible solutions and way to resolve some of the problems that he addressed at today's meeting. I would suggest that we work with Mr. Olson, that he meet with staff. Staff is already working on some changes to our procedures and to our processes for addressing unpermitted structures during the review of building permit applications. So staff already has a head start on that. We can provide him with information as to some of the solutions that we have come up with, and maybe work with him on other suggested ways to resolve the issues that he brought up.
Okay. Do you want commissioners to participate?
Mr. Chairman, based on comments that we've gotten from legal counsel, I believe that setting up a committee would be essentially the same as the commission being on the subcommittee. So we could, it's up to the chairman to set up a subcommittee, but regardless of whether there's a subcommittee involved of a portion of the Planning and Zoning Commission, the suggested changes would be brought forward to the entire commission in either
Sure.
scenario.
Are there commissioners that would be interested in sitting on a subcommittee?
Mr. Chairman, can I ask Barry? Barry, would it be helpful for you to have commission sit on this committee with you, or would you rather do it by yourself?
No, I think it would be very helpful to have the commission, because the commission has, you see these cases on a monthly, if not bi-month, well, you see them regularly.
Okay, so the commission, I mean, there could be no more than, what, 5 of us, so.
Well, I saw 3 hands raised. I would have those 3 members participate.
Mr. Chairman, there's no limit on how many people you have in a subcommittee, and it could include any number or all of the commissioners. That would be up to the,
Well, we have 3 interested parties. I think that's the direction we would go.
but just remind the commission that the subcommittee is still going to be subject to open meeting law, so they will need to meet with staff to make sure that they get the notices in place and notices given to all the members of the subcommittee.
Do I have to do a specific action to form this subcommittee?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you'd, I guess, have a
motion.
Bylaws have him set them up, or is it by motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm not, I don't have the bylaws that you have. There certainly would be no problem if you had a motion and a second and
Okay.
vote on that.
Then I'd entertain a motion to form a subcommittee to investigate the changes to the zoning ordinance. And the subcommittee would consist of members from the public, represented by Barry Olson, Commissioners Bryant, Ide, and Rice, and staff. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. And I will let staff organize the times of meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last item is discussion of commission members and planning director of events attended, current events, schedule of future planning
Mr.
meetings.
Chairman, did you want to call if anyone else wanted to comment in the public hearing?
I thought I did that. But I can reopen it if there are people who want to comment. Okay.
My name is Aaron Mundinger. I'm a small business owner in Yuma County.
Address, please.
7846 East County 2nd Street. I deal with this quite often. I have a project right now that's been rejected because of what's going on. They can't find a permit. I have a resident that bought the house across the street after the homeowner passed away. It was built in 2007, and they can't find the permit on a patio that's probably 1 in a million that's here in Yuma County. And now they're in a denial of a cool room for that building, and this happens regularly. So they won't allow them to proceed to get a permit because the patio is in violation of not having a permit, but the homeowner bought this thing not knowing it. Now he's a second owner. And this happens regularly in Yuma County. And it affects quite a bit of business for me, myself, as a small business owner. So that's basically all I have to say.
Very much. Anyone else care to speak? Hearing none, we'll close that public hearing and go to our last item, discussion of any events. Did ask that, I don't know if everyone got a copy of the attendance records. Hope to have quorums in all our meetings. If there are no other items of discussion, we're adjourned.
I didn't get